Aristotle's Poetics is divided into 26 chapters. Let us see what he is telling to us in these chapters. First chapter, Epic, talks about poetry, tragedy, comedy, and instrumental music, which are all modes of imitation, but they differ in medium, objects, and manner of imitation. In arts, imitation is produced by rhythm, language, or harmony. In the second chapter, he talks about men are depicted in imitation as either better than worse than or the same as they are in real life. That is, comedy represents men as worse, tragedy as better. In the third chapter, poets may narrate in first or third person or present the character as living and moving before us. That is, dramas are poetry representing action. In the fourth chapter, man's two instincts that gave birth to poetry, that is, instinct of imitation and instinct of harmony and rhythm. Great plots, stately diction, and iambic measures were adopted. In the chapter 5, comedy imitates the ludicrous some defect or ugliness which is not painful or destructive. That is, comedy does not have as well known of a history as tragedy. In the sixth chapter, tells that tragedy imitates action that is serious, complete, and of certain magnitude in artistically embellished language. The six part of tragedies are plot, character, thought, diction, song, and spectacle in that order of importance. In the seventh chapter, a plot must be whole and neither begin nor end in haphazard. A plot must be great enough in magnitude to be beautiful but not so long that it cannot be remembered in one view. In the eighth chapter, the plot should imitate one action with structural union of the parts, that is, incidents whose presence or absence make no difference need not be included. In the ninth chapter, he states that poetry relates not what has happened, but what may happen according to the law of probability or necessity. Poetry tends to express the universal history in particular. In the 10th chapter, plots are either simple or complex. Complex plots have a change of fortune with a reversal of the situation. In the 11th chapter, he says that reversal of the situation is when the action veers around to its opposite. Recognition, a change from ignorance to knowledge. The plot includes a scene of suffering, a destructive or painful suffering. In the 12th chapter, tells that the part of tragedy they are prologue, episode, exode, and choric song. In the chapter 13, he says that a perfect tragedy should be complex, have a single issue, and excite pity or fear. The change of fortune should be from good to bad due to error or frailty. In chapter 14, he says that superior plots arouse fear and pity by their inner structure rather than by spectacle and extraneous aids. Tragic deeds can be done or not done, wittingly or unwittingly. In chapter 15, he says that character should aim at goodness, prosperity, trueness to life, and consistency. The poet should follow the necessary or the probable limits. In chapter 16, recognition comes about by signs. The will of the poet, memory, when the sight of some object awakens a feeling by process of reasoning. The last way is superior. In chapter 17, the poet should try to place a scene before his eyes as if he were spectator of the action. The poet should first sketch the general outline of the story, then fill in the episodes in detail. In chapter 18, he says that the two parts of a tragedy are the complication extend from the beginning of the turning point and denouement which extends from the beginning of the change to the end. The poet should not attempt to make an epic structure with multiple plots. In chapter 19, he says that thought include effect produced by speech, such as a proof at refutation. Thought also includes dramatic incidents that needed no verbal exposition. In the chapter 20, he says that the general part of the language are letter, syllable, connecting word, noun, verb, sentence, or phrase. In chapter 21, he says that simple words are composed of non significant elements and compound words are composed of a significant and non significant or multiple significant events. Words are current, strange, which can be a foreign, metaphorical, ornamental, newly coined, lengthened, contracted, or altered. In chapter 22, he says that perfect style is clear without being mean. Style consisting wholly of metaphors is a riddle. Style consisting wholly of strange words is jargon. In chapter 23, he says that narrative poetic imitation, a single meter, should have a plot constructed on dramatic principle with a single whole and complete action. In chapter 24, epic poetry has the same kind and parts as tragedy, but epic poetry is one on a greater scale and use a heroic meter. The poet should speak as himself as little as possible. In chapter 25, poet imitates either things as they were or are things are they are, said or thought to be, or things as they ought to be. Language usage should be examined carefully. In the last chapter, he says that epic poetry is addressed to a cultivated audience and tragedy to an inferior public. It includes music, spectator, effects, vividness in reading as well as in representation, pleasurable narrower limits, and unity. So we can summarize the whole as the structure of tragedy as follows, that is beginning which is equal to prosperity of hero, middle which is equal to stimulation of hamartia, tragic flow, peripetia, reversal of fortune, anagnosis, moment of realization, and end is equal to catastrophe. Hero suffers consequences, catharsis, spectator motivated to purge his own tragic flow. Thank you.